Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zadita Transform. I'm excited to present our next session, which is a keynote session with Emerson, one of our platinum sponsors and a key partner of Zadita's. I'm Michael Pearl, and with us live today is Nathan Pettis, the President of Process Systems and Solutions with Emerson. Take it away, Nathan.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Very excited to be here. Talk a little bit about transforming industries. I think that's the topic of the day, and it's really an exciting time. And I'm sure a lot of our industries, it's every day I feel like my scrolling through various social media, see some kind of new transformational technology that's changing our world. My kids evidently don't have to do homework anymore because they use ChatGPT to write all their papers. The James Webb telescopes taught us all the Big Bang didn't actually happen. We're landing rockets like bicycles. And then some of the things going in life sciences are just amazing. So it's a great time to be part of a technology organization and innovation engine. And I want to share today some of the things that are happening, or one of the things we feel like will transform the industry that I work in and have always worked in, which is the industrial process automation business or industry. It's an industry unlike maybe some of the ones you work in that I would say doesn't move at blazing speed for lots of good reasons. When change happens, maybe everybody feels like the industry they serve is a laggard industry, but this one, for purposes of safety, needs to be an industry that moves maybe at a little slower pace than some of the others that we might all work in. But and there's a good reason for that. If you're going to make chemicals that, if you release a gas, can not just kill one, but hundreds or thousands of people, you have to be very careful about changing the way you do things. But even in that industry, in my career, which I've been in this industry for about 23, 24 years, I have seen multiple inflections, innovations, disruptive technologies come to this market, the market I'm going to talk about, that have disrupted it tremendously, completely. And I want to talk a little bit about that history just to kind of give a flavor of what some of those things are in this industry, and then spend some time on what we feel is the next one coming, because there are some commonalities in those transitions or those inflection points that I think are also brewing right now in the industry that is going to drive us all to do things differently going forward. So Leah, if you'll flip to the next slide. So there's only 2 slides here. This one is just sort of my reflection a little bit on my career. I started in this industry as a software developer, actually, a mechanical engineer, but I never did any mechanical engineering. I wrote code for a while before I got into the dark side of sales and marketing at some point. But I've always been in the industry of controlling and automating large process industries. And if you're not too familiar, you probably can guess what that's like. It's automating big plants that make things that continually stream out, whether it's fluids or paper or power. But it's a little bit just like closing the loop of anything. If you put your hand on a stove, you've got to measure the temperature to know it's hot. Your brain takes that information in, processes, decides to do something, and you put an output to move your hand. And that's the kind of equipment that Emerson makes to measure. And then the systems that I'm going to talk about today, mainly software and hardware systems, the control system to make a decision. And then there's outputs, pumps, motors, things like that to actually move the plant around. That's what industry we're talking about. And there have been these 4. There may have been many more, but I think if you would talk to customers or some of our, even any vendor or competitors and anybody in this industry, they would name these 4 things as pretty big inflection points through this industry. The first one on the far left is what we call smart field. This was in sort of late 80s, early 90s. Because of the technology capability, we were able to start putting smart intelligence lower into the field, the devices that measure the temperature of the flow or the pressure and things, and put electronics and intelligence and software in those devices such that they could start to communicate outward, not just the pressure is X or the temperature is Y, but I'm not healthy, or I'm not doing as well as maybe you think I am. So giving information out that wasn't there before because of a technology capability inside of the electronics and getting it into that kind of compressed casing. That was a big shift. And that came because there was a standard, a body of a group of companies, customers, vendors alike, that decided that information would be useful to run their plants more safely, more reliably, because they could take action on that extra information. And so this HART and field bus, these ways to communicate differently that weren't done before, were brought about by an industry and by open standards. And it really did change the way that field and those new plants were built. So that was the first one. It was a little bit before my time in the industry, but it certainly changed the way things were done. The second one is where I actually started. The second one was I went from school to a company, and like many of early entry-level people, I asked questions like, why do we do it this way? We were working on basically proprietary systems. The control system, the thing that makes the decisions on what to do about the temperatures, were built from the ground up by each individual company. So Emerson at the time had, I wasn't at Emerson, but had a system, the console. There were no Dell workstations, compact workstations. The console was built by Emerson. The operating system was built by Emerson. The control algorithms built by Emerson. And every competitor or solution provider had that type of thing, all proprietary. And Delta V, which is the system that we use today at Emerson, was the first in the industry to come to market with a commercially off-the-shelf solution. We call it COTS, but it's commercially off the shelf. So Dell computers, Microsoft Windows, Cisco switches, Ethernet for the protocol. And at the time, that was a huge risk. In fact, I remember talking to customers at the time and said, we can't run our plant with a toy like that. But because the value proposition was so high, the price point was so much different, the flexibility, the integration capabilities, the amount of functionality you could bring, because now you weren't having to do the whole thing. You could just focus on the software that your domain expertise brought. It swept through the industry, and every single provider of these solutions today has a solution like that. But it changed the industry in a major way, but it was a huge hurdle because it was something risky for the end users. But the pain and the need was so great, it happened. The next one over is wireless. That's another big inflection point, happened around 2005-6, where again, because the technology was there, because the need to have other data points, information that you wanted to know about your facility that you couldn't get wires to. An example might be a train car that's got fluids in it. Well, it's moving. You can't put wires on it, but you need to know what the level is, for example. Or maybe there's a measurement point way high on a column or a distillation tower or something that to run the wires up is just too cost prohibitive. That idea was there, but the technology, and again, this was an open standard thing. This was a group of suppliers and customers got together and defined standards to make it so we had a wireless network, mesh network that leveraged secure protocols, tried to take advantage of the communications that customers were already used to, and again, change the industry. I remember times when we would go in to talk to customers and they would say, if you bring up wireless one more time, we'll kick you out. I'm so sick of hearing about wireless, because they didn't want to try it because it was risky and it's not secure. And well, what's going to happen if someone hacks it? And oh, what happens if the signal goes bad? But over time, the value proposition was so good, and it allowed them to run their plants differently, less reactively, more proactively, because of the new information they could get that they couldn't otherwise. It took over the market. And now there's hardly any customer that doesn't use it in some facet. Not all Emerson, but some facet of wireless. The next one over is really kind of on that journey. Well, what about for the parts that the measurements that can't be wireless? If you're going to measure something that is a safety system, and if for half a millisecond you don't get that signal, things trip, you're never going to put wireless on that. So there's always going to be wired plants. And the top of that sort of last pillar there just shows for years, for 30 years, the way it was done is there'd be hardware in those cabinets. There'd be these other cabinets, what they call marshalling cabinets, full of wires. If you ever opened one up, you'd just see the spaghetti of wires. And it was just the work processes that were put in place years ago to try to separate the transmitter from the control system IO. Lots of reasons for it, but just think there was a lot of cabinets and a lot of wires. And a customer came to us and said, if you could solve that problem, make those wires go away, it would be a huge savings for us. And then frankly, more importantly, it would change the way we run projects and allow us to bring things to market faster. And again, using software and new capabilities and technology and innovation, we went from sort of the top of that pillar down to the bottom, where we are now in an architecture that's one cabinet. So that was another big disruptive event, and everybody uses it today. So the point of all those things is, even in a laggard industry like the industrial process, if the technology comes to bear and there's a change in the technology. There's enough momentum around a body of companies, or one company that wants to take the risk and invest in it, and most importantly, pains or a need from the customer, you can change any industry. And I think we are there right now in the next inflection point. So it's kind of 1990, 2000, 2010, and now 2020. It feels right about time and also technology. So if we flip to the next slide, Leah, what we feel is coming is just the evolution of kind of that path I just talked about, whereby more and more of the system becomes software centric. And you have a stack of software that is providing not just the intelligent field. Now that's always going to be physical for the most part. You have to put things into the process to measure what's going on. But you have this intelligence down at the field level, which is even higher than the ones I showed in the first slide. More information, more data. Because of wireless, you have more information you can bring in a much more cost-effective way. So the data that is available to know about the state of your facility or your plant is exponentially more than it was 15 years ago. And the need for that data is also exponentially more. And so that layer is there and has been evolving. The middle one is the control, safety, event, kind of the real-time nature, running the facility at the facility. That software is, in our case, Delta V, the control system, that is there, becoming more software-centric every day. And I think you may hear from Claudio a little later, person that works with me at Emerson, to talk a little bit about what our vision is there. And then there's this idea of a connected enterprise and a software that is above, let's call it the running of the facility, and more about how to tie out your supply chain, not quite an ERP, but supply chain planning. What are we going to make at that facility today? Where's the most efficient facility to do that? So optimization, workflows, that's what we would call kind of a enterprise level operations piece of software. And we have invested and worked with AspenTech to provide that. So now between Emerson and AspenTech, we have what I think is a stack of software that allows a customer to look completely differently at what it means to have a DCS or a control platform, an optimization platform, and to more look like an operations platform, a software-based stack. But what's new, all that is somewhat new, but what's maybe so exciting right now is what a Zedita does. It's the compute power and the ability to put that intelligence or software at the place it needs to be. So whether it's in the field or on-prem, you can still, with the technology that Zedita is bringing to the market, still have an enterprise feel. Now, maybe some of that will be in the cloud. I'm sure some of it will be. But the idea of having these plants connected, these data silos that have for years and years been disconnected, coming together and being able to share across an enterprise, even with not necessarily having to run off-prem, because a lot of that software has to be so close to what it's doing. You need it to be on-prem. And it's going to allow us to bring applications to market in ways that we have never been able to before, that are focused on what our customers care about. How do I run more safely? I can't kill people. I've got to run my plant more safely. I can't have any safety incidents. I've got to have, obviously, increased profitability. Every company needs to do that. Improve reliability. And then we have this more recent constraint to the optimization, which is I need to do it more sustainable. And so all of those things are what our customers care about. And we have this full stack now to be able to provide those applications, and then maybe most importantly, run it in a framework like Zedita provides, that regardless of where in the fabric it runs, it can still be an enterprise connected solution. So from edge to enterprise, we're really, really excited about bringing that to market. We may not be the only ones, I don't know, but we're certainly going to be one of the ones that do it. And this is where we think the market's going to go. This is the next inflection point, the next big innovation, the next big disruption, and we want to be part of that. And that's why we're partnered with Zedita. So I think my last slide here, just real quickly, if you want to hear a little more about that, you can, I think there's two, these are actually at the same time, but Claudio Fiat, who works with me at Emerson, will be talking about bridging that gap, the IT-OT gap, because those convergences are real, but also still separate. And I think Neil Wang is going to talk a little bit about how our edge, our product with Zedita, our Delta V edge is you can interface with that through APIs. So hopefully that's a little bit of a help about where I think this industry is going and why I think it's so important for us to be partnered with Zedita. And Michael, as I said, really, really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I will hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nathan. That was really insightful to understand the journey that you've been through to get to the edge. And, we're excited to have you as a partner. So everybody does know, I know those sessions are at the same time, but they are recorded. So if you go to one, you can come back and see the recording afterward. The next sessions are going to start at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So you get a 5-minute break. The two next sessions are trends and challenges of industrial IoT and the digital twin. You can find links to these sessions in your agenda. And, thank you for joining, and please have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.